YouTube, and hello my bonbons. I'm in a game that's a Half-Life mod. This game, I was thinking, this game don't need a webcam, but you always freak out when I don't do webcams. This game is not so much horror. What I can read is that it really is just a weird fucking game. You're going to see, and I'm going to see, because I just read about it. And yeah, so there apparently is a man that will talk throughout the game, so you will both hear my voice and his voice, and I will try not to disturb when he's talking. So, and this game is all about choices. Choices. Here we go. That's Swedish for a new game, by the way. Why doesn't it work? Why does nothing work? Okay. I do it like, okay, enter. That's weird, but yeah.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor next to his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
He was happy. God, that's a good voice actor.
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget.
Whoa,
he had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on a monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions.
He doesn't have any friends.
Or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and walked out into the hallway.
Oh, did he now? So, I'm walking out of my desk and walking into the hallway.
Stanley decided to go to the staff lounge to check on his co-workers. He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others. So the thought of total solitude was terrifying to him.
What the fuck is this place?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Oh, did they now?
This was not the correct way to the employee lounge, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. So he turned left at the first open door and walked back in the right direction.
Maybe we should do that.
And like that, he was back on track.
I can see I can have loads of fun with this one.
Stanley entered the lounge. He was horrified to find not a single person here. He decided he would walk up to see his boss, hoping that he would find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Okay, let's do that. I will go against him sooner or later.
Entering his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. It was at this point that he began to feel dizzy and a little sick, and even thought he might pass out when suddenly he noticed a keypad next to the filing cabinet in the corner of his boss's office. Stanley had never seen this panel before and had no idea what combination of numbers would produce any result. In fact, only Stanley's boss knew this, since the panel withheld access to the boss's greatest, darkest secret, and so he had assigned the keypad a combination that only he could possibly know, the number of his freshman dorm number in college, 1957. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. Stanley ventured forth into the newly opened passageway.
Is this a horror game?
As he drew deeper into the bowels of the building, Stanley had no idea where he was or what this place held. And just as he began to think he might not discover a thing, he emerged into a long room to find rows and rows of monitors. Screens with a number above it.
That's my number.
Stanley noticed, however, that these were not random numbers, but the number of employees who worked in the building, his co-workers. Even his own number, 427, had a place on the wall. But why a setup so elaborate, he asked. Was this simple surveillance or something even more? And as if in answer to his question, the wall slid open before him, revealing the ultimate truth of the situation.
What the fuck?
An enormous control panel, Stanley discovered, but not one that controlled simple machinery. Buttons were labeled with emotions. Happy, sad. Levers and knobs controlled actions. Walking, eating, doing work, or watching TV. Every input on this device monitored not the functions of a machine, but of a human being. And the reality began to sink in. Stanley, like so many other people, reduced to images on a monitor, had been under someone's control, always at the mercy of this machine. Could this have been the only reason employee number 427 was content with his boring job? That a machine had altered his emotions to accept it blindly? He began to feel an unbridled rage, and at the peak of his anger, something happened. A spark. Stanley looked up and saw the generator overhead, still providing some small amount of power to the machine, keeping it alive. And knowing that this generator was all that kept the controls running, Stanley moved to the ladder in the back of the room and began to climb towards the rafters.
No, he did not. He walked out and started searching other things. Fuck. Okay. I'll do that then. What's the point of this game? I'm so confused.
The higher Stanley climbed, the closer he felt to freedom, the further from enslavement.
What happened if I went the other way? Ah, fuck, I need to play this again just because I want to know. Engage generator. Well, he wanted to disable the generator. I'm going to fucking engage the fucking generator.
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you?
Yes, I did.
After it kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself? Is that what you wanted?
Yes.
Control?
Yeah.
Stanley. Stanley. I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were meant to let it go. Turn the controls off and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you have. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized that he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are set to explode, eliminating the entire complex.
Okay, nice.
How long until detonation then? Oh, let's make it say, 2 minutes.
How the fuck do it?
Now, this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? Go ahead.
No.
Play with those controls all you like.
Yeah, I'm going.
Controls are where I'm sitting. Did you really ever believe you held any power? Did you not think I knew what I was doing? When I erased your co-workers and turned off the machine, I was offering you freedom, an escape. I didn't have to do that. I've run this story many times, and I don't always set you free. Sometimes you just sit there, day after day after day, doing your job forever, and then dying alone. But when I actually give you the freedom to control your own actions, it's not enough. I let you go, and you trapped yourself just the same. You just weren't made to handle this sort of responsibility, I'm afraid. But you know what you were made for? Pushing buttons.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm trying.
Oh, I'm enjoying this. Tell you what, I'll throw some extra time on the clock just because I'm having so much fun. There we go. You see, I want to watch you for every long second you try to puzzle this out. After all, it should make sense, right? The timer, the nuclear detonation, the mysterious facility, it's all here. This is a video game. Except for one thing there, hero. You've got no weapon, no vehicle. You don't even know where you're going. When you saw that timer, you just instinctively started trying to find an exit, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
In fact, I bet you're still looking for a way out.
Yes, I do.
I bet you're clicking on everything in this room.
Yeah, I am.
Doors or vents or something and solve the puzzle. As though this game has a solution, as though it can be won. That timer is not a catalyst to keep things moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. This is not a challenge. It's a tragedy. It's the moment when the hero realizes that despite his best efforts, he is powerless to his environment. And then he lets go. He surrenders. And he dies.
What the fuck are you talking about? There has to be something I can do.
30 seconds.
But
until a boom.
You said there's something I can do.
No ending to this story, just you die. I suppose you could have gotten an actual ending if you played along, but that just wouldn't have been your style, would it? Instead, you'll perish knowing that the only choice you made here was to turn on that machine and to start this timer.
Cocksucker.
Because I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here to watch every second of your inevitable life from the time we fade in until the moment I say, happily ever after.
Okay, new game. Now, let's just fuck it and do something else.
Stanley decided to go to the staff lounge to check on his co-workers.
There has to be some...
He never functioned well by himself.
They did say the game has no
from others, so
natural ending, so...
It was terrifying to him. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the employee.
No, fuck you.
And Stanley knew it perfectly well.
Now I know exactly what
you're doing.
So
he turned left at the first open door and walked back in the right direction. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Maybe this is why everyone had left. No one wanted to be around someone as bad at listening as him. And since he was walking into the middle of nowhere and thus ruining the entire story, Stanley decided that he would punish himself.
What?
So when he came to the elevator and the doors opened, he stepped inside and pushed the button to go up.
Punish myself? What? No. No. I want to go down, bitch.
Oh, Stanley. You know, you really aren't going anywhere, and I don't say that deceitfully. I truthfully mean that there isn't a story down here. The story was back up where I told you to go in the first place. Right now, you're just running around looking at empty halls. And frankly, that's perhaps even more infuriating for me. So why don't you throw me a bone, give me a chance, and just let me tell the story I want to tell,
I don't believe you. I'm sure there's something in this hallway. Somewhere. Something.
Now listen carefully. This is important. Stanley walked through the red door.
Fuck no.
Aha, perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door.
No, I did not. I walked the blue door. Blah, 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 blah.
I still don't think we're communicating properly. Stanley walked through the red door.
No, okay. Okay, you don't give me a choice. Fuck you. What the hell is this? It's a black room.
Good. Now, if you don't mind, there's something I'd like to show you. But to do that, I think it would be best for us to start from the beginning.
What?
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. His job pushing buttons demanded little of him, so there was not much of himself to give. And in this way, Stanley's job felt less and less like his every day. But if buttons need pushing one day, it means they'll need pushing the next and then the next. So without question or judgment, Stanley continued to do what the screen told him. One keystroke flowed into another keystroke, flowed into his ride home, flowed into dinner, flowed into waking up, flowed into going to work, and here he was again. Stanley was typing out a complete sentence that said absolutely nothing at all. If in reality no one ever actually disappeared from the office, and Stanley never got the opportunity to make a decision, to choose which path he wanted to take, would his life still have any meaning? Perhaps when we long for something deeply enough, these hopes and fantasies become so strong in our minds that we truly believe that we're there, controlling that person and living that adventure. To manipulate your own thoughts and emotions might mean freedom from a self-imposed prison, but these delusions can be fatal to those who can't tell the difference. And so, Stanley asked, if that door never opened, if I'll never be able to walk away from those people and from these buttons, is this life still worth experiencing? Am I actually happy? Stanley answered this question by pushing a button. Then he pushed a button, and then he pushed a button. Then he pushed a button. Then he pushed a button.
There's one more thing we haven't tried yet. Or I guess there's thousands of things we haven't tried yet.
He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others.
But this game makes me curious about choices. So now, I'm going to take the left.
A set of 2 open doors. He entered the door on his left.
Good. And I will not go up to my boss room this time, though.
As Stanley entered the lounge, he was horrified to find not a single person here. He decided he would walk up to see his boss, hoping that he would find an answer there.
La 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 la. Fuck you, la la la.
Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Say something. I didn't do
But
this.
Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, of admitting that he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, was it really worth taking that risk? All because he believed everyone had disappeared? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. Everyone I know simply vanishing out of the blue, there's almost no other explanation for it. And a nagging fear began to creep up in his mind. Questions that had been there all along. He just hadn't put his finger on them yet. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar.
Place.
Was he just walking around in circles?
Yeah.
Where am I, he thought. And the more he found himself unable to answer these questions, the more questions continued to arise, until he came to the issue that had been slowly boiling until he could ignore it no longer. Why is there a voice in my head, dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Suddenly, every door slammed shut. "No!" Stanley screamed. "I need to get out of here. I need to know that there's something out there. I need to know it's not just all in my head." And he screamed and clutched at his skull as the voice grew harsher and the music in the background rose higher and higher. And then, moments before collapsing to the ground, Stanley clenched his fists and screamed to anyone who might be listening,
"Help me!
I'm not real!
I'm not real! I'm not
Don't
real.
believe any of it! None of it's real!"
Nothing is real.
And
This
then
is a
everything
nightmare.
went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
What the fuck?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She got dressed, went to work, clocked in, clocked out, and then she walked home.
But that's a dead
But
band,
her walk
though.
on this day was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Moments after seeing him, she would turn, run to the nearest police station, and call for an ambulance. But for just a few brief seconds, she merely stood there, unable to move. The tragedy was not the death of a single person. It was that she would never know this man's story, never hear in his own words what had happened to him, or what he believed had happened to him. For to know these things would be to exist inside the head of the man himself. So all she could do was observe from a distance and pity him. But Mariella had places to be and people to meet with, very important people, whose impressions of her would affect her career and indeed the rest of her life. She stood there for only a moment, looking down at the body, and then she ran.
I gotta give it to it. I'm not going to do any more. I know it was a long video. But God, it says this game has no point. You can't succeed. You can't win. And we experienced a couple of endings. I'm sure there's like 20 endings or something, but that's pretty much what you guys are going to get. So, fuck. But that was an interesting game. I love the idea. But as I said, there was no real use of a webcam, but I hope you liked it. This is me, Morfar. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like, comment, favorite, and above all, share. Puss och kram. All bonbons.